If you love immersive, real storytelling about survival, belief, and forgotten lives, hit like and subscribe. It helps more than you know. Drop a comment with the medieval fact that surprised you most, or what role you think you'd play if you were born in the year 1287. Let's begin and live the life they never got to finish. But be warned, some truths about the past are harder to forget than others. The Dark Ages was a deliberate lie, orchestrated by the very powers, church, nobility, and later, compliant historians who feared an informed, organized populace. They buried the complex communication systems, the medical innovations that saved lives despite being deemed heretical, the ingenious ways families survived famine by breaking taboos. This isn't just history. It's the colossal cover-up that continues today. From manipulated media narratives to economic systems designed to disempower. The crushing weight of this realization is immense, forcing you to question every official story, every convenient truth. They lied about the past. What else are they lying about now? Outside, the wet sound of rotting thatch drips from the eaves, mirroring the relentless decay you see everywhere. You've never seen a toothbrush. You believe demons live in fog. Your town blames goats for the plague. Welcome to the Middle Ages, but not the one they taught you. What they don't want you to know is that your ancestors were not helpless victims. They were architects of a vast, silent war, fighting oppression with coded messages, forbidden remedies, and networks that defied surveillance. 99% of people think they know how medieval people died, but the truth will keep you awake tonight. The church buried this secret for 800 years, until archaeologists found the evidence in 2019, shattering everything we thought we understood about the Dark Ages. The candlelight gutters, your breath mists in the frigid air, thick with the metallic taste of fear, and the sweet sick smell of unidentifiable herbs drying in the corner. Fingernails scrape against rough stone as you instinctively clutch the amulet, a tiny carved bone, not a crucifix, hidden beneath your tunic. The sun breaks through again, washing the field in stark, unforgiving light. The rye, a vibrant green, stands defiantly. But how long can a secret, so vital, so visible, remain hidden? You feel the cloying sweetness of sweat mixed with earth on your brow, a potent reminder that true freedom often grows from hidden roots, but is nourished by constant, terrifying vigilance. Not the reeve, not yet, but a passing cloud, momentarily plunging the field into an unsettling twilight. Elara freezes, her back to you, her hands hovering above the precious rye. She glances over her shoulder, her eyes meeting yours, wide and knowing. It's a silent conversation, a shared conspiracy that binds you tighter than any oath. What would happen if the Lord's men discovered these secret stores? The penalty for withholding even a handful of grain was brutal. The lash, the stocks, eviction, starvation, your very life, your autonomy, hinged on the silent growth of these dark green stalks. Evidence that, for centuries, historians quietly dismissed or overlooked. These weren't mere wild foraging. This was strategic, defiant cultivation, an underground economy of survival. Imagine being Elara, her calloused hands tenderly brushing soil from a stubborn shoot, knowing that this small hidden patch could mean the difference between her children's bellies aching from hunger or a chance at another sunrise. Imagine the terror of the reeve's shadow falling across your field, every rustle of the rye stalks suddenly sounding like an accusation. A shadow does fall. You remember the brittle snap of a dry weed underfoot, a sound that echoes like a thunderclap in the vast, silent field, reminding you of the ever-present danger of discovery. This isn't just about food, it's about control, it's about power, a tactic still employed by modern agro-corporations who dictate what you eat, where it comes from, and who profits. Archaeological finds, painstakingly unearthed from the soot-blackened floors of peasant hearths, tell a different tale than the neatly bound manor books. They reveal abundant pollen from these forbidden grains, clear evidence of widespread covert farming. What they don't want you to know, what 99% of people never learn from their history books, is that the official manor records tell only half the story. They catalog the crops that fed the Lord, his soldiers, his lavish feasts. They conveniently omit the diverse, tenacious grains that peasants secretly cultivated: wild rye, hardy oats, ancient varieties of millet, crops resistant to pests, thriving in the poorest, most unforgiving soil. These were not the Lord's crops. They were the people's. They were hope. While the Lord's reeve meticulously counts every grain of wheat, every ear of barley, ready to exact his tithe, this grain, this resilient, almost wild rye, offers a chance at escape, a chance to survive a winter that the Lord's official harvest, always susceptible to blight or endless rain, might not sustain. The earthy scent of the soil, usually a comfort, now carries the metallic tang of desperation, sharp as a newly sharpened scythe. The sun, a brutal, unblinking eye in the endless sky, glazes your skin with a thin, gritty film of dust. But the true heat comes from the silent, internal furnace of fear. The air hums with the droning whir of unseen insects, a deceptively peaceful sound that only amplifies the frantic thump-thump of your own heart. Your coarse tunic scratches against your skin, a constant, irritating reminder of your station, your vulnerability. The rye Alara nurtures isn't just food, it's an act of treason. 99% of the history you've been taught about medieval farming is a lie, a carefully curated fable of obedience. The true fight for freedom wasn't with steel and banners, but with forgotten seeds buried deep in the earth, under the very nose of absolute power. You watch your neighbor, Alara, her back a testament to countless sunrises and brutal sunsets, tend a small, hidden patch of rye. Its dark green stalks shimmer with an illicit vitality, a defiant middle finger to the Lord's sprawling, monotonous fields of wheat. The echoing silence of the sacred space feels less holy now, less sanctified, and profoundly more conspiratorial, as if the very walls themselves are about to give up a secret that has been patiently waiting for centuries to be found. A narrow seam, almost invisible, has appeared along the base of the column, just behind the grotesque. You press harder. What could possibly lie beneath the surface of such hallowed yet deceptively rebellious ground? And what terrible truth did these anonymous masons risk everything to hide from the burning gaze of the church? What arcane principle did it represent? What forgotten truth did this impossible geometry point to? Was it a key to a greater pattern, a different understanding of existence that would have been declared heresy? As your finger brushes the strange mark, tracing the tiny, elegant spiral, the stone feels unexpectedly warm beneath your touch, tingling as if it's alive. A faint, almost imperceptible click, echoes through the hollow space behind it, causing the ancient dust to stir in the still air. You lean closer, your breath ghosting wisps of white against the ancient stone. There, just at the base of a particularly ornate carving, a grotesque gargoyle with eyes that seem to follow your every move, almost swallowed by shadow, is a tiny, perfectly carved symbol. It's a compass, yes, but with a third inexplicable leg, ending in a spiral like a forgotten nautilus shell. It's not in the official plans you studied, nor in any standard Mason's Guild textbook you've ever seen. It's a deliberate anomaly, a question mark etched in stone, defying explanation. It's hauntingly similar to modern whistleblowers, meticulously embedding truths in plain sight within complex systems, knowing that only a trained eye or a future technology would ever decipher the message. The quiet courage of it, the multi-generational gamble that their secrets would one day be understood, resonates with a primal human need for truth to endure. Even in the face of overwhelming oppression, you feel the tangible weight of their legacy, a silent communication across 700 years, reaching out through the cold stone, a shared hunger for what lies beneath the surface. To challenge its doctrine was to invite not just social ostracism, but the fires of hell itself, both literal and metaphorical. Yet, within the very structures built to glorify its dominion, to project its absolute power, men carved a quiet, multi-generational rebellion. This shatters the common assumption of absolute, unquestioning religious control. These Masons were not just laborers, faceless servants of piety. They were guardians of a knowledge too dangerous to speak aloud, yet too vital to be lost, whispering truths across centuries through the language of angles and arches, daring to redefine divine order. And that was a truth too dangerous for the masses, a threat to the very foundation of their unquestionable authority. The faint scratch of your own fingernail, seeking purchase against a stubborn patch of lichen that clings to the ancient mortar, is the only sound in the cavernous nave, echoing unnaturally loud, a lonely whisper in a tomb of sanctioned thought. Imagine for a moment the immense, terrifying power of the medieval church. It dictated every thought, owned every truth, and condemned dissent with terrifying finality, often through public burning. This was knowledge that described the universe not as a flat realm centered on humanity and divine decree, but as a system of harmonious ratios, celestial mechanics, and interconnected forces that hinted at a different, more natural order. It was the stuff of ancient Greece, of whispered Arabic texts, and forgotten Roman brilliance, knowledge the Church had systematically suppressed, condemned as heresy. To understand these geometric truths was to glimpse the mind of God, not through dogma, but through pure, rational observation. These aren't just symbols of craftsmanship. They are digital breadcrumbs etched in antiquity, left by a clandestine network of skilled laborers, a guild within a guild, bound by oaths deeper than any fealty to the Church. They passed on forbidden geometry, advanced engineering principles, and even philosophical ideas, secrets that threatened the Church's iron grip on knowledge and spiritual authority itself. Imagine, these architects of faith were simultaneously architects of defiance. Your fingers, numb with the pervasive chill, trace the rough, icy surface of a colossal column, feeling the faint, deliberate unevenness, a subtly misplaced block, a hairline fissure that shouldn't be there, a deviation that 99% of visitors would dismiss as mere imperfection, a sculptor's error. But you know better. New photographic analysis techniques using spectral imaging and LiDAR have unearthed specific, recurring Mason's marks and profound architectural anomalies, not just here in this echoing nave, but across the vast network of Europe's greatest Gothic marvels. What they don't want you to know is that even in the grandest cathedrals, forbidden knowledge was encoded by secret societies of Masons, hidden in plain sight for centuries, a silent war waged in stone against absolute power. The air hangs heavy, thick with the ghost of 1,000 whispered prayers, and the cold, damp scent of centuries-old stone, almost metallic on your tongue. Dust motes dance in the thin, fractured shafts of light slicing through the colossal stained glass windows, each speck a tiny forgotten witness to secrets yet untold. Let's begin and live the life they never got to finish. But be warned, some truths about the past are harder to forget than others. This is the secret they don't want you to know. History is always written by the conquerors, and suppressing alternative narratives is a powerful form of control, much like how modern governments shape educational curricula to control what you learn about your own past. If you love immersive, real storytelling about survival, belief, and forgotten lives, hit like and subscribe. It helps more than you know. Drop a comment with the medieval fact that surprised you most, or what role you think you'd play if you were born in the year 1287. What if the myth of the talking raven or the legend of the whispering woods held a deeper, more dangerous truth, a truth protected by generations of oral tradition, a coded language of rebellion? New linguistic analysis, comparing regional dialects thought to be unrelated, has unearthed consistent patterns, patterns that reveal not fables, but battle plans, not superstitions, but strategies for uprising, not nameless figures, but the true names of peasant heroes, heroes erased from every official chronicle, every parchment scrolled by the victors. The old woman's voice, raspy with the grit of forgotten centuries, tells a story that prickles the hairs on your neck. The warmth of the fire is a temporary comfort against the chilling truth she weaves. A tapestry of defiance stitched into the fabric of what they call folklore. You've never seen a toothbrush. You believe demons live in fog. Your town blames goats for the plague. Welcome to the Middle Ages. What if the nursery rhymes weren't just simple tales? What they don't want you to know about medieval history isn't just hidden in dusty archives. It's whispered in the very cadence of ancient tongues. 99% of what you think you know about peasant life is a lie, a carefully constructed narrative designed to keep the true power of the people buried. The candle gutters. Your shadow dances against stone walls that have witnessed 1,000 similar nights, each one heavy with the smell of damp earth and wood smoke. Outside, the wind howls, a skeletal moan through the thatched roofs, trying to pull the warmth from your very bones. The biting cold of the night sky holds secrets that could determine life or death. Then, as now, if you love immersive, real storytelling about survival, belief, and forgotten lives, hit like and subscribe. It helps more than you know. Drop a comment with the medieval fact that surprised you most, or what role you think you'd play if you were born in the year 1287. Let's begin and live the life they never got to finish. But be warned, some truths about the past are harder to forget than others. These weren't random stones. They were maps, calendars, and prophecy tools, telling you when to plant to avoid famine, when to harvest before the rain spoiled everything, even predicting weather patterns with chilling accuracy. This knowledge, essential for life, was systematically suppressed because it utterly undermined the Church's sole authority on divine providence, turning human ingenuity into heresy. This challenges the Dark Ages narrative, proving widespread, sophisticated empirical observation. Doesn't this echo modern debates, where scientific consensus is often denied for ideological reasons? But what if I told you that even in this world of superstition and fear, sophisticated knowledge thrived, hidden in plain sight, above your very head? What they refuse to teach you is that for generations, before any priest spoke of divine providence, your ancestors understood the heavens with breathtaking precision. This was a survival secret, passed down in whispers, etched into forgotten stones. Archaeological evidence, the kind historians conveniently overlook. Like the ancient megalithic alignments across remote European sites, doesn't just hint at, but proves an advanced understanding of celestial cycles. The wet sound of rotting thatch dripping onto cold-packed earth outside your door is the only rhythm. The metallic taste of fear, or perhaps just the ever-present gnawing of hunger, coats your tongue as you gaze up. Your fingernails, caked with the day's mud, unconsciously scrape against the rough stone of the lintel. You've never seen a toothbrush. You believe demons live in fog. Your town blames goats for the plague. Welcome to the Middle Ages. What they don't want you to know is that your very life in medieval Europe depended on a secret, forbidden science, a wisdom the Church declared heresy. 99% of people think they know how medieval people survived, but the truth will keep you awake tonight. The biting wind whips through the gaps in your hovel's wattle and daub walls, carrying the sharp scent of frozen earth and stale wood smoke. You shiver, a deep tremor that has nothing to do with the night's chill, but everything to do with the vast, inky blackness above, pricked by 1,000 indifferent stars. You turn to leave, the cold stone floor beneath your feet, knowing the story is now part of the wall, part of the memory, waiting for new eyes to uncover its truth. What other secrets, you wonder, are hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone to finally read the threads of history? From coded patterns on a tapestry to subversive messages in modern music, the need to speak truth to power is an ancient, unyielding impulse. It shatters the assumption that medieval peasants were passive, unthinking pawns. They were strategists, artists, and chroniclers, their looms a silent challenge to every official lie. As the torchlight flickers across the tapestry, the hidden symbols seem to shift and dance, whispering their forbidden story to those with eyes to see. The figures on the fabric, frozen in time, carry the weight of countless forgotten lives. This was no mere folk art. It was a testament to the strength of suppressed innovations, of minds that found a way to speak when all other voices were silenced. The quiet rebellion of the loom, a network of whispers against the roar of the powerful, ensured that the true history, the dark truths of medieval life, persisted. What these forbidden truths teach us is not just about the past, but about the enduring human spirit. It reminds us that even under the most oppressive regimes, humanity finds ways to resist, to document, to remember. But you, Alara, see the truth. You see the broken bird hidden amongst the leaves, the deformed rose within the floral border, The south-flying geese etched into the background's distant landscape. You see the story of the stolen children, the brutal tax raids, the families driven to starvation, all woven into a grand narrative of official glory. The central mystery is resolved. The truth was never truly buried, only concealed in plain sight, a silent scream woven into the very fabric of power. Historians have hidden this for centuries. This quiet intelligence network that ran beneath the nose of lords and priests. Will Maeve make it back safely? Will the warning arrive in time? And what other dark truths are woven into the shrouds of the dead, forever silent? The air hangs heavy with the scent of damp wool and old sorrow. You stand before the great tapestry, finished now, hanging in the Baron's newly built hall. The guards, oblivious, admire its vibrant colors. The crimson fields, the noble huntsmen, the stylized castles. They see triumph, they see loyalty. On a new length of linen, meant to become a child's swaddling, you begin to sew a border of tiny, stylized geese. But these geese fly south, not north, a prearranged signal to scatter, to hide valuables, to move the children. You add a single, dark stitch beneath the beak of one goose, meaning the danger is immediate, not merely anticipated. The soft scrape of the needle through the linen is the only sound, each stitch a prayer, a warning, a desperate hope. The information, delivered via a lover's token, is a chilling pattern interrupt, revealing a hidden conspiracy of resource hoarding and taxation brutality that kept ordinary people on the brink of starvation. It's a lost wisdom, this ability to read the very fabric of life, turning simple folk art into crucial intelligence. It's like a hidden layer in a modern digital image, only visible to those with the right key. This isn't just news, it's a call to action. You take up your needle, a bone shard worn smooth. 99% of people assume medieval peasants were illiterate and uncultured. Yet this sophisticated communication system rivals any written cipher, relying on shared visual language rather than letters. The metallic tang of fear fills the small hut, mixed with the acrid scent of the burning peat. Maeve whispers, her voice barely audible over the crackling fire. They move again, the king's tax collectors, west, past the Black Mire, to the new families. Her eyes meet yours. A silent plea. The distorted rose means danger is imminent. Specific families are targeted. The old woman Maeve from the next village arrives under the cloak of twilight, a bundle wrapped in faded linen clutched to her chest. Her face is etched with lines of worry, her breath ragged. She lays the cloth before you, a piece of embroidery, usually exchanged between young lovers. But the pattern, it's a familiar bloom, yes, but the petals curl inward, a subtle distortion. This is the secret sign of the Whispering Rose Society, a network of weavers, seamstresses, and dyers who have kept this knowledge alive for centuries. Yet, the weaving continues, each careful pass of the shuttle a tiny act of rebellion, a preservation of memory. This tapestry isn't just warmth, it's a living archive, a defiance against deliberate erasure. You imagine being 12 years old, and this is your reality. The loom is your shield, your weapon, and your only hope for truth to survive. What secrets, you wonder, do the other weavers, the silent historians of the cloth, carry in their own patterns? The weight of those untold stories presses down on you, heavy as the damp thatch dripping outside. We see the truth. This is a pattern interrupt for the powerful, a message they will dismiss as peasant craft. never suspecting the sophisticated data encoding hidden in its threads. Just as a modern song's melody can hide a biting critique of power, your loom's hum carries a silent, subversive message that defies the sword and the parchment. Later, under the thin light of a sputtering rush lamp, you hear the heavy boots of the Baron's guards patrol past your cottage. Your heart thrums, a frantic drum against your ribs. One glance, one question, and everything could unravel. It's not just a bird anymore. It's a broken wing, a symbol understood only by those who know the code, a sign of the children taken, families shattered. The rough wool scratches against your skin, but the pain is a whisper compared to the memory of the cries. Your grandmother taught you this when you were barely tall enough to reach the treadles, her voice a low drone, the clacking of the loom covering her words. "They will never look close enough," she'd said, her eyes alight with a fierce, quiet defiance. "They see only fabric." They say the church's word is God's word, etched in stone and read by the priests. But 99% of people never learn that another history existed, scrawled in wool, hidden in plain sight. This is the forbidden language, the truth about the Baron's raid on the western village, an account stripped of his glory, replaced with the true horror of starvation and stolen grain. The official scrolls declare a victory. Your loom sings of massacre. Your fingers ache, calloused and nimble, as you introduce a specific knot, almost imperceptible, where a stylized bird normally rests. Let's begin and live the life they never got to finish. But be warned, some truths about the past are harder to forget than others. The shuttle flies, a blur of wood and hemp, weaving the red thread through the warp. The air is thick with the smell of lanolin and damp earth. You are Alara, and your hands move with an ancient rhythm, passed down through generations of women who spun not just cloth, but whispers. It parallels how modern art or music often carries subversive messages against oppressive regimes. The loom, usually a symbol of domesticity, becomes a printing press of dissent, its rhythmic clack, 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 hiding a revolutionary act, a testament to the power of hidden truth. If you love immersive, real storytelling about survival, belief, and forgotten lives, hit like and subscribe. It helps more than you know. Drop a comment with the medieval fact that surprised you most, or what role you think you'd play if you were born in the year 1287. Outside, the wind howls a lullaby of wolves and forgotten souls. You've never seen a toothbrush. You believe demons live in fog. Your town blames goats for the plague. Welcome to the Middle Ages. The metallic taste of fear is always on your tongue, a constant companion. Yet within this darkness, a quiet revolution stirs, a secret language spun from thread and dye. This shocking reality, only uncovered by textile historians using advanced image analysis in recent years, proves that what was dismissed as mere decoration often served as secret communication or even coded historical narratives contradicting official accounts. The quiet hum of the loom. You trace the intricate pattern on a worn tapestry, the rough wool familiar beneath your fingertips. But 99% of people don't understand the hidden messages encoded within. They buried this secret in plain sight, forbidden knowledge woven into the very fabric of peasant life. What they don't want you to know is that these seemingly innocent threads are a testament to a sophisticated system of cultural resistance. A silent rebellion against the official accounts of the powerful. The candle gutters. Your shadow dances against stone walls that have witnessed 1,000 similar nights. The pounding of your own heart mirrors the desperate hope of those who sought freedom, revealing the emotional stakes of defying the law, a gamble where the price of failure is absolute. And you are playing it now, your next breath hanging on the truth of a whispered promise and the loyalty of shadows. Tonight, as the relentless chill bites at your exposed skin, you have only the faint, flickering light of a distant window for guidance, a beacon in the terrifying darkness that feels both impossibly close and impossibly far. You remember the last whispered instruction, a cryptic riddle about the baker's spoiled rye, and wonder if you're walking into salvation or a carefully laid trap from within the very network you hope will save you. This wasn't just survival. It was a quiet, relentless war for human dignity. But who were these silent guardians, these anonymous saints and sinners who risked everything? How deep did the network truly run? How far did its tendrils spread across the cold, unforgiving landscape? And what impossible risks did they take to offer safe passage, to harbor those condemned by the law of the land? A historical fact that shatters assumptions. These networks were often facilitated by sympathetic clergy who saw a higher law than the Lord's, or by rural communities bound by kinship and a shared hatred of tyranny. They defied official laws, directly challenging the Lord's authority from within his own lands. A network of whispers, of secret signals carved into fence posts, of half-forgotten prayers sung as coded messages. 99% of historians never speak of this audacious underground rebellion because it shatters the comfortable myth of passive peasant obedience. You can almost feel the phantom grip of the Lord's reeve, a cold, unyielding hand on your shoulder, dragging you back to the merciless wheel or the stocks that await. You recall the stories, the common wisdom, the warnings whispered in hushed tones around dying hearth fires. The woods will claim you, the hunger will break you, the Lord's men will find you. This wasn't just a desperate dash into the wilderness. These were organized escape lines, meticulously planned. Like them, these medieval souls found courage not in solitude, but in the hidden empathy of strangers, the quiet defiance of a community refusing to be silenced. This challenges the sanitized history of absolute feudal control, much like how a hidden spring can carve a canyon through solid rock over millennia. The rough wool of your tunic scrapes against your skin as you shift, a frantic insect trying to burrow deeper into the earth, desperate for camouflage. Every rustle of leaves, every distant dog's bark sends a fresh jolt of ice through your veins. You run your fingernails along the rough bark of the oak, the tiny splinters grounding you in the terrifying present. Yet the promise of these hidden paths feels like a ghost in your mind, a forgotten dream suddenly made real. Imagine the gut-wrenching decision. Stay and face a punishment that could mean the loss of your hand, your sight, or your very life, or vanish into the perilous unknown. It's a choice that mirrors the stark realities faced by modern whistleblowers, daring to expose corruption, or asylum seekers fleeing unspeakable injustice across impossible borders. For centuries, the official story was simple: absolute control. The Lord owned the land, the lives, the very breath of his serfs. Flight meant certain death, but suppressed monastery records, recently unearthed from a forgotten crypt beneath the crumbling Abbey of St. Jude, tell a far more dangerous, far more hopeful truth. These faded parchments, their ink flaking like autumn leaves, detail not just isolated acts of desperate flight, but complex systems of safe houses, whispered codes, and clandestine routes. You press yourself deeper into the damp, cold earth behind the gnarled roots of an ancient oak, the chill seeping into your very bones. Your breath hitches, a shallow rasp in your throat that tastes of the metallic tang of fear. The wet sound of rotting thatch dripping from the unseen hovel just beyond the tree line is the only other sound, a morbid counterpoint to your own pounding heart, which thrums a frantic rhythm against your ribs. Every muscle in your body screams with the need to move, to run. But the darkness offers a fragile shield. For now, 99% of people believe that if a medieval peasant dared to flee the Lord's justice, their fate was sealed. Certain death in the wilderness, or a swift return to the gallows. What they don't want you to know is that beneath the iron fist of feudal law, a different kind of freedom pulsed, a network woven from desperation and defiance. The metallic clanging of the blacksmith's hammer echoes from the distant village square. Each strike a brutal reminder of the Lord's decree, a death knell for your hopes if you're caught. Join us next time as we delve into the secrets of medieval medicine, the practices that kept people alive when the Church declared their methods heresy. They walk among us still, those who find the loopholes, who build the alternative, who refuse to be merely subjects. And as the modern world grapples with its own shadow economies, its own cries against control, remember the chilling truth. The crunch of dry leaves underfoot, carrying illicit goods, is a sound as old and as eternal as human freedom itself. But this is just one path. What other hidden rebellions, what other suppressed truths lie waiting to be unearthed beneath the weight of official history? But this underground system was a direct, vibrant rebellion, a collective refusal to starve quietly. It teaches us that where official systems fail or oppress, humanity will always find a way to forge its own path, to create its own justice, to survive, not just endure, but to thrive in the shadows of injustice, fueled by a primal need for autonomy. The chill of the night air, once a whisper of dread, becomes a promise of survival. The ghosts of those weary travelers, their footsteps, muffled by centuries of soil, still whisper through the trees, a testament to defiance. It was a lifeline, a silent agreement amongst the oppressed, stretching across duchies and forests, connecting desperate hands and defiant spirits. These were the true arteries of medieval survival, circumventing the chokehold of feudal taxes and the moral taxation of the Church, which often demanded tithes even from the starving. What they don't want you to know is that economic manipulation through religious doctrine and taxation was a powerful tool of control, binding the peasant to the land, to the tithe, to their destiny of poverty and obedience. The secrets buried under the guise of banditry and lawlessness weren't mere happenstance. They were a deliberate, intricately woven tapestry of defiance, spun by countless desperate hands across generations. You exchanged a curt nod with the figure, a silent understanding passing between you, before each melted back into the inky blackness, continuing your separate, perilous journeys. Archaeological surveys, once dismissed as mere curiosities, now speak volumes. Those forgotten paths, Those river crossings, the hidden caches of carefully wrapped grains, tools, even forbidden medicines, they prove a network far more extensive, far more organized than any lord or bishop dared to imagine. You follow it, deeper into the darkness, but suddenly the snap of a twig behind you isn't the forest settling. It's too distinct, too close, and the chill isn't just the night anymore, it's the metallic taste of fear. As you realize you might not be alone on this forbidden path after all. The snap of the twig, the shadow that flitted between the ancient pines, it was a test, a signal, not a threat, but a confirmation from a fellow shadow walker, a silent acknowledgement that you belonged to the unseen brotherhood of the forbidden path. It echoes the shadow economies of today, thriving where official systems fail or oppress, a testament to humanity's unyielding will to survive, to find a loophole, to breathe free. This ancient rebellion against economic manipulation through religious doctrine and taxation was a powerful tool of control. This underground system was a direct, dangerous, yet vital act of defiance. Your hand, calloused from a lifetime of labor, brushes against a gnarled oak, feeling for the familiar, rough carving. A hawk's talon. The sign. These aren't random acts of desperate men. They are the breadcrumbs of a highly organized, sophisticated system of trade. Everything from grain to tools, from rare herbs to illicit furs, flowed through these arteries of defiance. Often, these were goods banned by the lords themselves, resources they wished to monopolize, or even ideas they sought to suppress. This wasn't just about saving a few coppers. It was about reclaiming autonomy, about defying a system designed to keep you beholden to their will. The official economy was a tool of control, a system designed to keep you perpetually hungry, perpetually indebted. The common folk knew this. They felt it in their aching bones, in the hollows of their children's cheeks. So they carved out another way, a shadow economy that thrived in the very heart of oppression. Archaeological surveys along forgotten paths and river crossings, often dismissed as mere bandit trails, are now revealing the truth. Hidden caches, carefully placed markers, carved into ancient trees, and subtle diversions from official roads. 99% of historical accounts paint a picture of neat, official markets, regulated trade, and obedient tithes to the church. They want you to believe that if you needed grain, you paid the Lord. If you needed salt, you bought it from his sanctioned merchant. But this is the secret. Those official routes were a noose, tightened by a handful of powerful hands. Every coin exchanged was bled dry by feudal taxes, by the church's insatiable tithes, by the Lord's right to first choice and inflated price. The rough sacking of the heavy pack chafes against your shoulders, its illicit contents a small sack of hoarded grain, a few lengths of precious woven cloth, perhaps even a crude yet forbidden iron tool, a lifeline and a death sentence wrapped in one. Every rustle of leaves, every distant hoot of an owl, sends a jolt through your weary frame. This isn't just a walk, it's a silent prayer, a desperate gamble for another week of warmth, another day without gnawing hunger. The chill of the night air bites at your exposed skin, a constant companion as you push deeper into the dense, unforgiving forest. Each crunch of dry leaves under your worn boots feels like a shout in the profound silence, a drumbeat against your ribs. Your breath plumes in the frigid air, a ghost of your fear, dissolving quickly into the darkness. Drop a comment with the medieval fact that surprised you most, or what role you think you'd play if you were born in the year 1287. Let's begin and live the life they never got to finish. But be warned, some truths about the past are harder to forget than others. Tonight, we walk a path they didn't want you to find. What they don't want you to know is that survival itself was an act of rebellion, a secret whispered on paths hidden from the Lord's gaze. Your town blames goats for the plague. Welcome to the Middle Ages. But how did they truly live? Not the lords, not the priests, but you. What secret economy hummed beneath the iron fist of feudal law, keeping bellies full and hope alive, when 99% of history books refuse to acknowledge its very existence? This is the forbidden history they meticulously erased. If you love immersive, real storytelling about survival, belief, and forgotten lives, hit like and subscribe. It helps more than you know. 99% of what you've been told about medieval survival is a lie. A truth buried deeper than any forgotten grave. The candle gutters. Your shadow dances against stone walls that have witnessed 1,000 similar nights. A rat scuttles in the straw, its tiny claws a symphony of dread. The air, heavy with the stench of damp earth and stale hearth smoke, presses in on you, a constant reminder of your meager existence. You shiver, but not from cold. A primal unease clings to you like the persistent chill. You've never seen a toothbrush. You believe demons live in fog. If you love immersive, real storytelling about survival, belief, and forgotten lives, hit like and subscribe. It helps more than you know. Drop a comment with the medieval fact that surprised you most, or what role you think you'd play if you were born in the year 1287. Let's begin and live the life they never got to finish. But be warned, some truths about the past are harder to forget than others. You believe demons live in fog. Your town blames goats for the plague. Welcome to the Middle Ages. But there's a world within this world, hidden in shadow, where different beliefs and far more dangerous knowledge take hold. The flickering light of the furnace reveals a clandestine world of dangerous, brilliant experimentation that history tried to bury. This mirrors how modern scientific discoveries that challenge established paradigms are often met with skepticism or even outright suppression, proving that the fear of new knowledge is an ancient, primal thing. Imagine a world where sophisticated distillation equipment, not seen again for centuries, hummed with dangerous potential, creating new compounds that could heal the sick or, more terrifyingly, unleash unseen forces. Recent archaeological digs in remote European caves have started to unearth startling evidence. Not just primitive tools, but intricate alembics and sealed vessels containing compounds that defy explanation, hinting at a scientific understanding far beyond what we are taught. These discoveries whisper of lost wisdom, of secrets that could reshape materials or conjure new medicines, but were, by the church, branded as sorcery. You've never seen a toothbrush. The air shimmers with the heat from a stone furnace, its hungry maw devouring split logs, while fine, almost invisible powders sift across rough-hewn tables. This isn't the fool's errand of popular lore. This is the true crucible of forbidden science. 99% of popular history dismisses these solitary figures as superstitious madmen, chasing mythical elixirs and turning lead to gold. But what if they possessed forbidden chemical knowledge so profound, so revolutionary, that it threatened to unravel the very fabric of religious dogma? The acrid bite of sulfur gnaws at the back of your throat, a foul perfume dancing with the metallic tang of fear in the air. What they don't want you to know about medieval alchemists isn't that they failed to find gold. It's that they found something far more dangerous, a secret that history has meticulously buried. Here, deep in the dripping heart of a hidden workshop, far from the pious gaze of the village priest, flickering candlelight carves grotesque shadows from bizarre glass retorts and bubbling crucibles. You feel the eyes of the chapel turn, not just on Alara, but on you, as if your knowledge of these hidden defiance makes you complicit. The next dawn promises a choice: submission or the perilous path of a secret life. Alara, silent as a tomb, her fingers still clutching the dying lily, holds a secret that could either shatter her world or finally set it free. Will she be broken by this day, forced into a future she despises? Or will she become a ghost in their meticulously crafted machine, a whisper of rebellion for those who dared to love? And what retribution awaits those who uncover such dangerous truths, those who dare to seek love where only power is permitted? These were the forbidden truths unearthed from dusty archives, secret vows whispered under cover of darkness, clandestine affairs nurtured in hidden chambers, even hand-fasting ceremonies performed by rogue priests in defiance of church law, creating bonds that were not legally recognized, but were spiritually binding to those who dared to make them. What they don't want you to know is that even in the most suffocating cages, human hearts found a way to beat outside the law. The sheer, overwhelming power of these institutions to dictate the most intimate aspects of life is a dark truth hidden beneath layers of romanticized history. But as Alara's hand, cold and trembling, is placed into Kale's, a flash of defiance ignites in her downcast eyes, so fleeting you almost miss it. You've heard the whispers, seen the faint, almost invisible ink of a hidden vow in a confiscated letter from a noblewoman's effects. Strategies for circumventing these ironclad rules. Much like today, where unseen institutions subtly nudge our choices, shaping our careers, our families, even our perceived freedoms, medieval society was an enormous, omnipresent hand, guiding every step, every breath, every whispered vow, all to maintain their power structure. The injustice of it all is a silent plea for freedom, a silent scream trapped behind Alara's lips, and your own. You see it in the way the local lord levies exorbitant taxes on his serfs, claiming divine right, or how a single, devastating harvest can plunge an entire village into starvation because the church holds all the land. A true love match, a dangerous heresy in the eyes of the church and nobility, could shatter everything. The bitter taste of helplessness fills your mouth, a mirror of the injustice that burns in your own chest. You understand how the church and nobility, with their intricate web of laws and doctrines, dictated personal lives to maintain social order. They presented these rules as divine will, as moral imperatives, when in truth, they were the iron chains of control. You've pored over the recently digitized legal treatises, the meticulous records of property transfers, the dowry agreements that listed every single cow and coin, every acre and serf. They detail elaborate clauses about ensuring a male heir, about what happens if the bride dies childless, about the exact weight of silver and the number of armed knights she brought to the union. Never a single mention of affection. Love was not merely secondary. It was a dangerous, destabilizing force, capable of unraveling generations of carefully constructed power, of jeopardizing the fragile balance between rival houses. He doesn't look at her with affection, but with the appraising eye of a merchant counting his profits. The priest's droning Latin washes over the assembly, a meaningless chant over a transaction. 99% of people don't realize the terrifying extent to which marriage was an economic and political weapon, meticulously calibrated for inheritance and alliances, for securing land and loyalty. This wasn't a union of souls. It was a merging of ledgers, a strategic maneuver on a vast, unforgiving chessboard where human lives were mere pawns. You can feel the grit of the ancient flagstones beneath your own feet, the persistent chill seeping into your bones, mirroring the icy grip around her heart. Every flicker of the beeswax candles casts dancing shadows that seem to mock the sanctity of the moment, illuminating the forced smiles of the assembled nobles, their gazes like vultures, assessing their newest acquisition. The groom, Lord Cale, a man whose face is already etched with the lines of ruthless ambition, stands waiting, his broad shoulders and unyielding stare a stark contrast to Alara's fragile form. The air in the cold, damp chapel is thick with the scent of old incense and something else, a metallic tang that stings your nostrils, tasting like the bride's unspoken dread. You watch her, Ilara, barely a woman, her eyes downcast, fixed on the scuffed tips of her expensive, borrowed shoes. Her hands, clammy and small, clutch a single wilting lily, its petals already bruising. The stiff, embroidered silk of her gown rustles with a dry, papery sound every time she breathes. Each breath a shallow, desperate gulp. The scroll, yellowed and brittle, was unearthed from beneath the rotting floorboards of a forgotten priory, a chilling legal treatise detailing not the vows of love, but the brutal mechanics of medieval marriage as pure economic leverage. 99% of history books ignore the cold, hard truth of it. Love was a liability, and marriage, a transaction of flesh and land. What they don't want you to know is the silent war waged by those trapped within, their hearts beating in defiance against the very foundations of their world. But what if the next harvest brings not bounty, but the cold iron of the baron's justice? Your labor, your very ability to feed your family, is a weapon in their arsenal, and they don't want you wielding it too effectively. But the Reeve patrols daily, his horse's hooves thudding a warning across the damp ground. He eyes every furrow, every seed. He knows something is amiss. Tonight, as the moon bleeds silver across the furrows, you must decide. Will you continue this quiet rebellion, this sacred trust from generations past? Or will the fear of discovery finally break you? The crop is growing, a verdant green against the brown earth, a living testament to defiance. The ache in your back is eased by this forbidden knowledge, a quiet defiance that warms your spirit even as it threatens your life. You understand, perhaps instinctively, why this knowledge was suppressed. It's the same struggle we see today, where sustainable technologies are bought up or buried by powerful entities who benefit from the old, inefficient ways. The lords, like modern corporations, hoard power not just through gold and steel, but through the very earth beneath your feet. If you could make the land twice as fertile, you'd become too powerful, too independent. 99% of agricultural history glosses over this. But your ancestors were not ignorant. They understood the earth better than any scholar scribbling in a dusty monastery. They knew that letting a field lie fallow, year after year, was a waste of divine potential. They knew certain plants could heal the soil, not deplete it. This lost wisdom, this heretical understanding of crop rotation and soil enrichment, planting legumes where wheat once starved, was a revolutionary act. You feel the grit of it under your fingernails, a constant reminder of where you stand in the grand, cruel order of things. Nearby, a crow caws, its voice a dry, rasping sound against the vast silence of the fields. This spring, however, something is different. Your gaze drifts to the south plot, the fallow land that should lie barren, resting. But it isn't barren. Here, you and your kin defy centuries of mandated tradition, risking the wrath of the reeve, the baron's greedy eye, and the chilling pronouncements of the church. What they don't want you to know is that your very survival hinges on a secret whispered only in the shadows of the fields, a forbidden wisdom that could cost you everything. The sun beats down, a relentless hammer on your bent back. Your hands are raw, calloused monuments to a life spent wresting sustenance from the unforgiving earth. A deep breath draws in the rich, loamy scent of freshly turned soil, a perfume far more potent than any nobleman's incense. If you love immersive, real storytelling about survival, belief, and forgotten lives, hit like and subscribe. It helps more than you know, pushing these hidden truths into the light. Drop a comment with the medieval fact that surprised you most, or what role you think you'd play if you were born in the year 1287, facing these silent struggles. Let's begin and live the life they never got to finish. Peel back the layers of deception and uncover the forbidden truths they kept hidden. But be warned, some truths about the past are harder to forget than others. Recently translated legal documents, long overlooked in dusty archives, reveal instances where peasants strategically exploited loopholes in feudal law, challenging authority in subtle yet effective ways, proving this power was never truly absolute. The metallic taste of injustice lingers on your tongue, making you question every public display of power, from the king's throne to the local bailiff's pronouncements. This manufactured fear, you realize, is a tactic echoed even now in modern political propaganda and fake news campaigns, proof that some ancient deceptions never truly die. What you witness is not raw justice, but an elaborate piece of theater, designed not to right a wrong, but to hammer home a message of absolute, unquestioning obedience. Yet the true power dynamic, the actual fragility of the Lord's grasp, the shocking reality that 99% of those around you will never grasp, is a secret whispered only in the taverns, passed between trusted few. They speak of how many lords leveraged miracles or divine omens to enforce their will, fabricating legitimacy where none truly existed, twisting belief into a weapon. His cries are raw, a sound that scrapes against your soul, yet something in his eyes, a flicker of defiance, a depth of knowing, tells a different story than the one proclaimed by the guards' whips. You've never seen a toothbrush. You believe demons live in the swirling mists of the morning fog. Your town, just last season, blamed goats for the sudden blight of the plague. Welcome to the Middle Ages, where every public display is a meticulously choreographed dance of dominance. A performance designed to control your very soul. The ground beneath your worn boots is a slick, indifferent mud, churned to a grim paste, stained with the refuse of 1,000 lives lived precariously on the edge. A single, ragged crow watches from a skeletal, barren tree, its coarse caw slicing through the low, uneasy murmur of the tightly packed crowd. Every breath you take is cold, sharp, and laced with the smell of damp earth and dread. Before you, a man is being punished, a public spectacle of grim authority, a lesson for all. 99% of people believe a medieval lord's power was absolute, a divine right carved in stone and steel, unbreakable. What they don't want you to know is the truly shocking secret buried under centuries of ceremonial pomp and manufactured fear. His control was a brittle facade, a desperate stage play of engineered obedience. The wet sound of the rotting thatch dripping outside the monastery walls, a sound that promises decay, now seems to carry the faint, insistent rustle of turning pages, endlessly copying, endlessly spreading the forbidden truth. What other truths, you wonder, are still waiting to be unearthed, just beyond the reach of those who wish to keep them hidden? You pick up a single, carefully illuminated page depicting a complex but elegant system for crop rotation that would have fed a village. The ink, though centuries old, seems to hum with a quiet defiance. It is a haunting image, a testament to the lives lost and the progress denied, a whisper from the past reminding you that the fight for accessible knowledge is never truly over. The silence here in the hidden chamber is no longer heavy. It is a profound, almost spiritual quiet. It ties together the themes of human resilience, the enduring hunger for truth, and the age-old battle against the suppression of empowering information. What these forbidden truths teach us is that knowledge, even the simplest, is a potent weapon against control, and that those in power will always seek to define what you are allowed to know. From medieval papal edicts to modern media narratives, the method remains chillingly similar. Control the information, control the people. Her last act, the mud under her nails, wasn't from a fall. It was from clawing at the earth inside the chamber, trying to hide a crucial map detailing where other copies of these texts were being circulated by a network of defiant scholars and monks across Europe. The abbot, found with a quill clutched in his hand and a half-copied page of agricultural innovation beside him, had not died of fever. He had been poisoned, a swift, brutal silencing by those who suspected his defiance. What they don't want you to know is that among them are radical texts outlining communal property rights and the inherent dignity of all people, regardless of birth, forbidden ideas of social justice that struck at the very heart of feudal power. The mystery of the evil books is resolved. These weren't spells or incantations. They were knowledge, practical, life-altering knowledge. The abbot had been secretly preserving, and even in hushed tones, copying these texts with Brother Thomas. Agnes, though illiterate, had become their unwitting protector, her regular cleaning schedule a cover for the abbot's clandestine activities. The place where the Church's carefully constructed illusion of divine order threatened to unravel. The source of the abbot's quiet terror, Agnes's accidental death, and Thomas's waking nightmares. Inside, stacked precariously against the cold, sweating stone, are not relics or gold, but books, thousands of them. Their pages, once vibrant, now brittle and foxed with age, hold diagrams of advanced crop rotation, defying the superstition that controlled harvests. There are treatises on basic hydraulics and aqueduct design, practical engineering solutions that could have brought clean water to disease-ridden villages. You feel the chill of a single damp gust of wind swirling through the ancient stone, carrying a faint, unsettling whisper. The last loose stone, heavy with the weight of centuries, finally gives way with a groan that seems to echo the despair of forgotten souls. You brace yourself, your fingers raw and numb from the effort, the scent of damp earth and old parchment now overwhelming. Brother Thomas, his face gaunt, eyes burning with a desperate resolve, helps you slide it aside, revealing not a crypt, but a shallow, cramped chamber. This is it. But the scribe, Brother Thomas, now wanders the cloister with haunted eyes, glancing over his shoulder, a man perpetually on the edge of revealing too much. You watch him from the archway, noticing the way his left hand constantly seeks the hidden pouch at his belt. What did Agnes see or hear that made her a target? And what desperate act did she take, in her final moments, that left that telltale mud under her nails? A silent accusation pointing not to a fall, but to a struggle. A desperate attempt to carry on a mission she barely understood. Agnes was a witness, not by choice, but by circumstance. Her hands, calloused from years of toil, were more trustworthy than any oath sworn on a holy book. The historical fact that shatters assumptions is that literacy wasn't the only form of knowledge. The medieval world was rich with oral traditions, practical skills, and spatial memory that circumvented the written word, making those deemed ignorant far more dangerous than the church realized. The mystery deepens with the death of the abbot, mere weeks before Agnes. A sudden fever, they said. She knew the faint tremor of fear that rippled through the abbot whenever she ventured too close to that particular section of the basement wall. Her knowledge wasn't intellectual, it was visceral, spatial, a secret rooted in the muscle memory of her daily chores. This isn't just a story about forgotten books. It's a story about the unsung heroes, the unseen women whose proximity to power made them unwitting custodians of history's deepest secrets. Consider how often modern media dismisses the quiet observations of those on the fringes, the so-called uneducated, whose insights might shatter carefully constructed narratives. Her rough, work-worn hands, accustomed to scrubbing away grime, had, in her final moments, scraped against something rougher, something she shouldn't have been touching. 99% of people never learn that the hands which cleaned the monastery cells also possessed the most dangerous knowledge: the location of the hidden library. Agnes, unlike the abbot and his scribe, couldn't read, but she knew the feel of the loose stone, the way it shifted ever so slightly under her touch as she swept the cobwebs. You stand in the shadows of the very crypt where her broken body was found, the air thick with the smell of damp earth and the metallic tang of something ancient. The silence here is not peaceful. It's a heavy shroud, pressing down, making you acutely aware of the drip, drip, drip of water from the vaulted ceiling into an unseen puddle, each drop echoing like a distant bell. It was this sound, perhaps, that Agnes last heard. But the mud under her fingernails told a different story, one of desperation and a secret she carried to her grave. Agnes the cleaner was a ghost in the monastery's stone corridors, a wisp of a woman whose presence was only marked by the faint, lingering scent of lye soap. Yet she was one of the three. What they don't want you to know is that her death, officially an accident, silenced a crucial link in a clandestine chain of knowledge. This was the true heresy, the real threat to a power structure built on your ignorance. If you love immersive, real storytelling about survival, belief, and forgotten lives, hit like and subscribe. It helps more than you know. Drop a comment with the medieval fact that surprised you most, or what role you think you'd play if you were born in the year 1287. Let's begin and live the life they never got to finish. But be warned, some truths about the past are harder to forget than others. They told you she fell, a loose stone, almost invisible, concealed texts that could have reshaped your world, given you power you never dreamed of. Why did the church burn these books, silence these voices? Not because they were evil, but because they were empowering. Imagine for a moment a peasant knowing how to improve his crop yield by a staggering 30% through advanced rotation. Imagine him understanding basic engineering principles to build a stronger well, or even daring to question the Lord's divine right based on forgotten principles of social justice. Your breath, mists in the frigid air, each exhalation a fragile cloud against walls that have imprisoned centuries. The chill seeps into your bones, a constant reminder of the scarcity of warmth, of comfort, in a world where survival is a daily battle. You've never seen a toothbrush. You believe demons live in fog. Your town blames goats for the plague. Welcome to the Middle Ages. But this story isn't about the demons outside the walls. It's about the ones hidden within, and the secrets they kept buried. 3 people knew the truth about the hidden chamber in the monastery's cold, damp basement. 2 are already dead. Their whispers, if they ever made it past the thick stone walls, were swallowed by the shadows, leaving no trace. What they don't want you to know is that these aren't tales of demonic grimoires, but of power, knowledge, and the silent war waged against the common mind. The air bites, carrying the faint, earthy scent of ancient parchment and dust. An olfactory ghost of forgotten truths. What other truths about survival, sacrifice, and the silent battles of belief lie waiting to be unearthed? You stand at the threshold, the past a haunting mirror to the present. The metallic taste of fear never truly leaves you, but it is now tempered by a different kind of knowledge, a dangerous, beautiful secret. What these forbidden truths teach us is not just about human fragility, but about human resilience and the enduring, often desperate, quest for understanding against all odds. It reminds us that truth, no matter how buried, eventually rises. The wind whispers through the empty, plague-ridden village, carrying not just the scent of death, but the phantom aroma of forbidden herbs. What else has history truly kept from you? The shadows in the hovel, once dancing like specters of death, now seem to merely cling to the corners, retreating from the flickering light of a quiet hope. This revelation forces us to confront a chilling truth. How many lives were needlessly lost because knowledge, rather than being shared, was deemed dangerous? How many then, and how many now, suffer because convenient narratives are prioritized over inconvenient truths? The frantic scramble of modern governments to control information during crises, to dictate acceptable science, echoes across 7 centuries. These forbidden practices, deemed heretical because they challenged the divine punishment narrative, were not born of superstition, but smuggled from the Middle East, a beacon of medical knowledge in a dark age. The scent of dried herbs, still clinging to the fabric of a preserved shroud, tells a story historians suppressed for centuries. Ilara's fever broke, not by prayer, but by poultice, not by penance, but by the bitter wisdom of distant lands. You listen, straining, for the creak of wood, the crunch of boots on the muddy lane outside. This is the moment of truth. The truth they buried beneath layers of doctrine, fear, and misinformation. The hidden cures of the Black Death, dismissed as heresy, were not miracles, but the product of observation and lost wisdom. Archaeological excavations in isolated rural grave sites have finally unearthed the undeniable evidence. Individuals buried with remnants of sophisticated herbal poultices and within structures suggesting advanced quarantine methods. In the medieval world, the inconvenient truth was that the plague was a disease, not a divine curse, and could be fought with knowledge, not just faith. This fact, if widely known, would have destabilized the entire power structure of the Church. You pray not to God for a miracle, but to the gods of smuggled knowledge, to the quiet wisdom of illicit healers. You pray that the shadow of Father Tomas, a tall, gaunt figure, does not fall across your doorway. The silence that follows, broken only by Ilara's shallow, regular breaths, is more terrifying than any scream. You spread the concoction over Ilara's bubo, the heat from her skin radiating against your palm, a constant reminder of the unseen battle waging within her. You seal the small hovel, hanging dampened cloths over the windows and door, creating a crude, airtight sanctuary. Fear, a cold, sharp blade, pricks at your neck. Discovery means the pyre, a fiery death for challenging the divine order. This parallels how modern governments often suppress inconvenient scientific truths for political or economic gain, controlling information during crises. New archaeological evidence, specifically from isolated rural grave sites, shows a surprising number of individuals treated with sophisticated herbal poultices and quarantine methods far more advanced than official church doctrine allowed. These are the graves of the desperate, the rebels, the ones who dared to defy sanctioned despair. You remember the hushed words she spoke. Isolate the sick, cleanse with fire, use the fumigations the Easterners taught us, the ones that choke the very air of sickness. The wet sound of rotting thatch dripping outside provides a haunting rhythm to your clandestine work. This is what 99% of people never learn. Even as the Church preached divine punishment, a network of illicit trade routes, often dismissed as dens of sin and heresy, became conduits for life-saving knowledge. Smuggled from the Middle East, these practices were centuries ahead of the West, challenging the very notion of spiritual blame for physical ailments. You follow her hushed instructions, carefully mixing the dried leaves with lard to form a thick green poultice. The texture is strangely smooth beneath your fingertips, the faint scent of foreign spices clinging to your skin. A gnarled hand, surprisingly strong, pushes a small woven basket into your trembling grasp. Inside, tightly bound, are crushed herbs that smell of damp earth and something acrid, wormwood, henbane, and a root you don't recognize. From the caravans, boy, the old woman croaks, her voice raspy, her eyes sharp and knowing. They know things far to the east, things the priests here would burn you for. You imagine being 12 years old, and this is your reality. Watching death claim your sister, powerless, forbidden even to try. The sweet, sick smell of rotting flesh, masked poorly by the burning herbs meant to ward off miasma, makes your stomach churn. You are trapped, not just by the disease, but by the iron grip of accepted truth that offers only false comfort. The moon, a sliver of bone in the black sky, watches as you make a choice, a forbidden choice. The secret that saved lives was deemed heresy, hidden in plain sight, whispered from mouth to fearful ear. This parallels how modern governments often suppress inconvenient scientific truths for political or economic gain, controlling information during crises. The Church, in its grim wisdom, sought to control the narrative, to maintain its power even as its flock perished. To admit that earthly remedies, rather than divine intervention, could save lives would be to undermine centuries of doctrine, to unravel the very fabric of their authority. The desperation in Alara's eyes, wide and unfocused, begs for something more than a priest's empty blessings. You watch as the fever consumes Alara, her breath coming in ragged gasps, a wet, rattling sound that seems to fill the entire hovel, drowning out even the distant wails of other dying souls. The metallic taste of fear on your tongue is almost overwhelming. You remember the old women, their hands gnarled like roots, whispering of strange, bitter poultices and sealed rooms, stories dismissed by the Church as witchcraft. Stories that Father Tomas condemned from the pulpit. Even as the pews emptied, one by one, his words offer no comfort, only a tightening noose of despair. He speaks of processions, of flagellation, of prayers to avert God's furious gaze, but 99% of people never learn that such desperate pleas were almost always answered by the grave. The official doctrine is clear. The plague is God's punishment, and to intervene with earthly remedies beyond prayer and penance is to challenge the divine will, an act of heresy. The guttural groan from the neighboring hovel is the only warning. What they don't want you to know about the Black Death isn't just about its horror, but the hidden cures that actually worked. The first black swelling, hot and angry, blossoms under Ilara's armpit, mirroring the dread blooming in your gut. Your hands, calloused from years of toil, tremble as you touch her feverish brow. The village priest, Father Tomas, preaches of divine wrath, of sins demanding retribution, his voice rasping from behind a scarf soaked in vinegar and rue. The desperate cough of your neighbor feels like a direct accusation, demanding to know why these forbidden truths remained buried. If you love immersive, real storytelling about survival, belief, and forgotten lives, hit like and subscribe. It helps more than you know. Drop a comment with the medieval fact that surprised you most, or what role you think you'd play if you were born in the year 1287. Let's begin and live the life they never got to finish. But be warned, some truths about the past are harder to forget than others. Your skin crawls as whispers echo from empty rooms. But 99% of historians refuse to discuss the radical medical practices that appeared during outbreaks. Practices that saved lives. You've never seen a toothbrush. You believe demons live in fog. Your town blames goats for the plague. Welcome to the Middle Ages. But what if the real demons weren't supernatural, but men who withheld cures? What if the cure for the death that claims your kin lies not in prayer? What in forbidden knowledge smuggled under cover of darkness? 99% of people think they know how medieval people died, but the truth will keep you awake tonight. The Church buried this secret for 800 years until archaeologists found the evidence in 2019, shattering everything we thought we knew about the Black Death. The air is thick, sickly sweet, with the stench of decay, a cloying perfume struggling against the acrid burn of incense. You clutch the rough linen of your tunic, your breath shallow. Each inhale, a metallic taste of fear. The metallic taste of fear, sharp on your tongue, is a constant companion now. But be warned, some truths about the past are harder to forget than others. Modern institutional lies often downplay or hide historical suffering to maintain a narrative of progress. Much like how food scarcity and its extreme measures are still often hidden today. If you love immersive real storytelling about survival, belief, and forgotten lives, hit like and subscribe. It helps more than you know. Drop a comment with the medieval fact that surprised you most, or what role you think you'd play if you were born in the year 1287. Let's begin and live the life they never got to finish. Acts that defied the Church's sacred laws, the Lord's iron grip on hunting rights, and everything considered clean. Records, sealed for 800 years and only recently digitized from monastic archives, subtly hint at a widespread unnatural animal consumption, a desperate, forbidden diet of creatures you would never, could never, openly admit to eating. This isn't just history. It's a mirror reflecting the lengths humanity will go to survive. A brutal truth sanitized from our textbooks. You've never seen a toothbrush. You believe demons live in fog. Your town blames goats for the plague. Welcome to the Middle Ages. You watch, your stomach growling as the Lord's prized pigs root through the mud near the manor, fattening on grain that could feed your family for a month. But what 99% of history books refuse to tell you is that when the fields failed, when the granaries were empty, and the Lord's gates were barred, many families resorted to ingenious, unspeakable acts to ensure survival. They don't want you to know how medieval peasants really survived the famines. The secret, buried under centuries of religious dogma and social shame, is more terrifying than any demon. The gnawing emptiness in your gut is a constant companion, a dull ache that sharpens with every gust of icy wind whipping through the gap in your threadbare tunic. Your breath fogs, a ghostly exhalation in the bitter dawn, as you stand by the village well. The metallic taste of fear, a familiar flavor, coats your tongue, mingling with the phantom taste of bread you haven't seen in weeks. Perhaps, in uncovering these forgotten histories, we might finally reclaim some of the wisdom that was lost. What other forbidden knowledge about survival and human resilience lies buried beneath the official narratives? The past holds more secrets waiting to be unearthed, if you dare to listen. The secret that changed everything wasn't that medieval medicine was primitive, but that its most effective forms were deliberately erased. It wasn't that people were ignorant, but that they were denied the knowledge that could save them. And you, walking among the living proof, now carry a fragment of that forbidden truth. Consider the echoes of this hidden war in our own time, in the suppressed remedies, the battles over patent rights, the fight for accessible healthcare. The whispers of the dying may no longer sound the same, but the power struggles over healing continue. Your child sleeps soundly, the small chest rising and falling with a steady, peaceful rhythm. Outside, the moon casts long shadows across the village, illuminating the path to the forest, a path that now feels less foreboding and more like a promise. The cold stones of the church still stand, casting their long official shadow, but you know now that true light, true warmth, true healing often blossoms in the hidden corners, cultivated by hands stained with earth, not holy oil. Imagine being told your only hope lies in expensive, complex treatments when a plant in your garden could offer relief. The medieval herbalist, the village wise woman, was a revolutionary, not by wielding a sword, but by cultivating knowledge, by proving that effective healing could come from anyone, not just the anointed few. Her simple cottage, fragrant with herbs, was a library of forbidden wisdom, a direct threat to a system built on dependency. You return to your hovel, the scent of Ilara's remedies still clinging to your cloak. The archaeological evidence, those meticulously preserved caches of dried plants in remote settlements, tells a story of an underground network of healers operating in the shadows, their practices far more sophisticated than any official record dared to admit. What they taught in the monasteries, the bloodletting and the incantations, was largely theater. What Ilara practiced was survival. This forbidden knowledge teaches us a profound lesson, that power, whether medieval or modern, often thrives on the suppression of truth. The fight for health was, and still is, a fight for autonomy. It was not divine intervention. It was the quiet, defiant power of human observation and the earth's bounty. The conspiracy was not a single event, but a slow, insidious erosion of knowledge. The Church did not necessarily invent ignorance. They cultivated it, nurturing the belief that all healing flowed from God, administered through their holy offices, or was simply beyond human control. By demonizing the herbalist, by casting their wisdom as witchcraft, they consolidated power. They ensured that the Lord's coffers swelled from tithes and the sale of often ineffective elixirs, while the populace remained dependent, ignorant, and easily controlled. You clutch the small cloth-wrapped bundle Ilara gave you, dried elderflower, a spoonful of honey, and a tiny vial of what she called Earth's blood, a thick, dark liquid you now know was derived from the root of a potent feverfew plant. These aren't just remedies. They are fragments of a lost science, meticulously passed down, each herb a chapter in a book deliberately burned. The child's fever, which had burned like a small internal fire, slowly receded after the bitter-sweet brew. You witnessed it. You lived it. You saw him last week, his eyes lingering on Ilara's cottage, a glint of suspicion in their depths. A dark cloud passes over the sun, plunging the clearing into a sudden, deep gloom. You shiver. What secret will Ilara give you, and what will be the price of this forbidden cure? The truth, once buried under centuries of fear and dogma, finally surfaces, revealing the forbidden knowledge that saved lives and threatened empires. The whispers of the dying echo in your ears, a stark reminder of the emotional stakes involved in this hidden war for health. Every life saved by Ilara is a silent defiance against the prevailing narrative of disease as divine punishment. She rises, her movements fluid and economical, and begins to select small bundles. The metallic taste of fear returns to your tongue, not for your child now, but for her. Her knowledge is a treasure, but also a target. The local priest, Father Thomas, has been preaching more vehemently about witchcraft, his sermons pointed and chilling. She points to a small, thorny bush near her hut. The Lord's rose, she murmurs, referring to wild rose hips rich in vitamin C. Good for the cough, but not for the heat within. She turns, her gaze falling upon a cluster of vibrant green leaves drying near the fire. No, for the heat, we need the moon's kiss. You know the plant, the elderflower, its tiny blossoms a potent fever reducer. This isn't magic. This is science, observation, accumulated knowledge built over centuries of trial and error, a heritage painstakingly carved out of the wilderness. Archaeological digs in remote settlements have unearthed caches of dried plants, meticulously preserved, contradicting official histories that portray widespread ignorance in medicine. They found jars filled with salicylic acid from willow bark, a natural painkiller, tinctures of foxglove, a powerful heart stimulant, and poultices of moldy bread, unknowingly containing penicillin-like properties. These weren't crude superstitions. They were sophisticated pharmacopoeia passed down through generations, often exclusively by women who understood the intricate language of the forest. This mirrors how modern pharmaceutical companies often suppress cheaper, natural remedies that threaten their profits, ensuring their continued financial dominion. Ilara listens, her brow furrowed, her eyes, the color of deep moss, hold a knowing gaze that seems to peel back your own layers of fear and desperation. She motions for you to sit, not on the stool, but on the earth, grounding you, connecting you to the very source of her power. She asks about your child, not with pity, but with precise, clinical questions about the fever, the cough, the child's stools. What they truly don't want you to know is that many effective medical procedures were banned, not for their ineffectiveness, but because they empowered the common folk, challenging the established order. The Church's monopoly on divine healing was a fragile thing, easily shattered by a real cure, a tangible improvement that threatened their spiritual control and the Lord's hold over his populace. You finally step into the clearing. The sweet, sick smell of crushed herbs mixes with the earthy scent of damp soil. Ilara, her face a web of ancient lines, her hands stained green and brown, looks up from a rough-hewn table covered with meticulously sorted bundles of dried plants. 99% don't know the true power of the village herbalist, often demonized as a witch by the church, but whose knowledge saved countless lives. You recall the last time the priest visited your dying neighbor, offering only prayers and the promise of a peaceful transition to God's embrace, while the man's body slowly stiffened, his eyes wide with terror. Ilara, however, offered a bitter brew, a poultice of river clay and crushed plantain, and a quiet strength. Your neighbor lived. The air here is different, a rich tapestry of scents, dried lavender, pungent garlic, the metallic tang of bloodroot, and something else, something subtly sweet and earthy, a promise of hidden power. This is where Ilara lives, the herbalist. They call her many things in the village, wise woman, healer, hag, but never witch to her face, not if they want to live. Her reputation, hushed and reverent, speaks of children who inexplicably recovered from the pox, of fevers that broke in the dead of night, of wounds that closed without festering. These were the true miracles, far from the Lord's cathedral. You follow the narrow, overgrown path, your breath pluming in the crisp air, the rustle of dry leaves underfoot, the only sound besides the frantic thrumming of your own heart. The skeletal branches of the ancient oaks reach like gnarled fingers, intertwining overhead to form a canopy that blocks out the watchful sky. A low, wet cough scrapes your throat, a familiar agony that has claimed 3 of your 7 children already. This child, your youngest, cannot be next. You approach the edge of a small clearing, where a wisp of smoke curls lazily from a crumbling, moss-covered cottage. Drop a comment with the medieval fact that surprised you most, or what role you think you'd play if you were born in the year 1287. Let's begin and live the life they never got to finish. But be warned, some truths about the past are harder to forget than others. What they don't want you to know is that many of the most effective medieval remedies weren't found in a dusty monastery, but in the forbidden glades where the forest breathes its secrets, and ancient wisdom still whispers. This is the forbidden knowledge, the true healing wisdom passed down by the village herbalist, often condemned as a witch by the very institutions that claimed divine authority over life and death. You feel the knot of fear and hope twisting in your gut, the raw vulnerability of a life where sickness is a constant shadow, and official remedies are often worse than the disease. Will you dare to seek the forbidden path when death knocks? If you love immersive, real storytelling about survival, belief, and forgotten lives, hit like and subscribe. It helps more than you know. The cold seeps into your bones, a constant companion that will likely escort you to your grave. You've never seen a toothbrush. You believe demons live in fog. Your town blames goats for the plague. Welcome to the Middle Ages. But there are whispers, not of demons, but of a different kind of power. A power that lives not in dusty scripture, but in the forest's heart, in the sweet sick scent of crushed herbs and the earthy damp of soil. A power held by hands calloused not by prayer beads, but by digging roots and grinding leaves. 99% of people believe medieval medicine was primitive and deadly, but the church buried the true healers, whose forbidden knowledge saved thousands for fear of losing their divine power. The flickering oil lamp casts dancing shadows on the packed earth floor of your hovel, each tremor of light revealing another crack in the wattle and daub wall. Outside, the wind howls like a starving wolf, carrying with it the metallic taste of raw winter and the distant wail of a child. You pull the threadbare wool cloak tighter, the smell of damp straw and wood smoke clinging to your skin. If you love immersive, real storytelling about archaeological evidence from countless village sites, often dismissed as unexplained, points to a complex, hidden communication system that bypassed official channels entirely. The metallic taste of fear coats your tongue as you consider the cost of exposure. The Lord's justice is swift, brutal, often ending in a public spectacle designed to crush hope. But the alternative, passive submission to a life predetermined by others, is no longer an option. By the end, you'll never trust medieval history again, because the greatest conspiracies are those presented as common knowledge. But a low, rhythmic tapping, subtle as a field mouse scrabbling for crumbs, reverberates not from outside, but from beneath your own cottage floorboards. Tap, tap, pause, tap, tap, tap. This isn't about the eternal struggle for survival. It's the prelude to a meeting far more dangerous than any illness. A whisper of a forbidden, silent rebellion. What they don't want you to know is that power structures, then as now, thrive on the illusion of unchallenged authority. Any organized dissent, no matter how small, was systematically erased from records, leaving history as a simple tale of lord and serf. 99% of people believe medieval peasants were silent, subservient, their lives a footnote in their lord's chronicle. They buried the truth of what you are about to do. The candle gutters, casting dancing shadows against the rough-hewn timbers of your cottage, as the persistent, rattling cough of your ailing neighbor Ilara punctures the pre-dawn quiet. You've never seen a toothbrush. You believe demons live in the fog that coils outside your window. Your town blames innocent goats for the plague that sides through families every few years. Welcome to the Middle Ages.